and welcome to anyone who's watching this video. I've picked up a low cost 9.5 block plane off Amazon. It was £23 in the UK. I'm just curious as to whether such a small amount of money will buy a viable block plane. Excuse me. I've not chosen this one by accident. I've read the reviews, I've looked at reviews with photographs on them, and I've studied to look to see what sort of quality is. And this is possibly the best contender for being a viable plane from what I can see. So we'll open it up, we'll have a look at it, we'll try it, we'll sharpen it, and we'll see what you get for £23. And then we'll probably be able to come to a conclusion as to whether it is a viable plane. So it's got a lot of surface oil on it. There's no sign of any rust. The mouth looks square, and the mouth seems to be the adjustable part of the bed seems to fit well. It doesn't look too bad. Let's see if we've got any adjustment on it. Just move that back a bit so we catch the light on it. Let's have a look what sort of adjustment we've got. Well, it's adjusting quite smoothly. Let's try the lateral. Yeah, it's adjusting quite smoothly. There's enough movement in there to get the blade through. The blade looks like it's square to the bed. I've had some of these where they've been at an angle. So first impressions is it doesn't look too badly made. I'm quite surprised really. So I'll take it now into the garage. I'll clean off the oil and I'll see if it'll cut as it is out of the box without doing anything to it. I'll just adjust the blade and take a cut, and then I'll come back and we'll have another look at it. And we're back. All I've done is wipe the grease off it and just adjusted it and tried it on some timber. It is, in my opinion, it's blunt, but surprisingly enough it will actually take a shaving. It's not too keen on a thin shaving, but there is a knot in the middle of this piece of wood, so but it's not overly keen on a thin shaving, but heavy shaving it'll it's stripped off quite well, surprisingly well really. Again, the piece in the middle is where the knot is, but on a heavy shaving it will actually take a cut, so that's quite surprising really. The adjusters seem to be working okay. It does look like the lateral adjuster's slightly one way, but there's enough adjustment on it to get the blade in a usable position. I had one of these that was a Stanley, and the bed was machined at an angle and you couldn't adjust it level with the bed. So far it's not a bad start. What I'll do now is I'll take it back to the garage, I'll sharpen it, Won't do anything else to it, I'll just sharpen the blade and then we'll come back and see where we've got with that. Right, we're back. This is just, I haven't sharpened it yet, but I thought it was worth having a look at the blade that I've just taken out. It doesn't look too bad, but it has had, if I can catch the light on it, has had a bit of a stone on the edge. The back hasn't been touched, but it looks like they have just slightly. Maybe you can see it there. Has just slightly been dressed with a stone on the front edge, which is interesting because it means somebody's done that by hand. In the factory they must have taken that and taken the burr off it by hand with a stone. But I thought I'd show that before I set about sharpening it. So I'll come back and when I've sharpened it and we'll see how it cuts. Right, we're back. I've sharpened the blade. I thought I'd show it before I put it back into the plane. It's not too bad, the blade actually, it's quite flat and it's not too coarsely ground. But if you're doing this, if you buy a new plane, just a tip for sharpening it for the first time is to get the back flat first before you touch the actual angle. Flatten the back off, because all these grind marks that you can see here from when it was made, if they get to the edge there'll be nicks, it'll be like a saw blade, it won't be smooth. So that part there needs to be completely smooth when you catch it in the light. None of these grind marks should be touching that front edge, because if they are they'll turn out as nicks in the blade and then it'll cut rough and it'll be like a saw blade. And I've also sharpened the angle up on there. Again, my tip for this is, regardless of what type of stone you're using, I like all the stones personally, and if you're not used to it, then obviously a honing guide is useful. I do them by hand, but I've done an awful lot over a lifetime. But the first part to me is use a course if you have to get those grind marks out on this front edge, and then hit it with a fine. Once you've got the back shiny and polished, then turn over and move to this side. Again, for me, I'd start with a course to get an edge and to get the grind marks out of it, and then I'd go in with a fine and just put a finishing edge on. Back it off again, just knock the burr off, and one final time put it back onto the fine for the angle. And when you've raised the burr on the back, you'll know it's sharp. You need to be able to feel that all the way along, and then the blade is sharp. And then just wipe the burr off with the back of the blade on the stone to wipe the burr off it. You can strop it. I wouldn't advise doing it on your hand, but I've done it for a long time. But you could strop it on something. A piece of leather's ideal, but just a rough cloth will do. Anything will do to take like a bit of toweling or something will take the burr off. So that's the blade. I'll put it back in and I'll come back when I've tried it. Right, we're back. After sharpening the blade, it's planing like a champ, to be honest. I'm really surprised. Thin shavings. Again, this bit here, there's a bit of a knot in this here, but there. Heavy shavings, and it's planing like a champ. It really surprised me, to be honest. I wasn't expecting too much of it, but it's planing very well. I also run it across some end grain because I wanted to test that, and this is only narrow. These pieces are only narrow. It's just a narrow piece I've been planing, so I thought I'd try it on a flatter surface, and it's worked just fine. Shavings coming off it. I think what that demonstrates really is the importance of having a sharp blade above all else. Because I've had a look at this bed and it's not flat. There is if you put it on a flat plate, you can see that it seems to be high. Just here you can see, if you see where the finish is coming off it, like the lacquer they've put on it, you can see it's catching that front edge, that just behind the blade there, and there seems to be a little bit of a high patch here, and it's very small, but there seems to be a slight high patch there. But it works, you know. I like the plain beds completely flat, but it's working, so I can't really complain too much about that. It might not be flat, but it's obviously good enough to use. As I said, I think the most important thing is a sharp blade. But we'll tear it down now, and we'll have a look at the guts of it and see what the general machining's like. Then we might make a few more adjustments. I'm still have an open mind about that at the moment. So let's have a look at that. It seems to work okay. I think it would benefit from being greased on this thread, I would have said. Maybe just run the file over that, just to take the burr off it. Yeah, so I think I'd take the burrs off that just to get it to run smoothly, and I'd put a bit of grease on it, I think, but generally it's not too bad. I personally might put the file across here and just crispen that edge up, but I might go and do that later, and we'll see what difference it makes. The blade itself I'm quite surprised at, to be honest. I thought it would be rubbish, but it isn't. Even planing that end grain, it hasn't torn it up. It hasn't nicked it, which I would have thought with a cheap blade it probably would have done, but the edge still doesn't look too bad. Let me just put a file on the blade and see if it feels like it's, having had it on the stone, it feels hard to me. Well, that's definitely hard there. There seems to be a bit of a burr on this side. It doesn't feel as hard on that side. No, I don't know though. I think it's just got a burr on it. So the blade is hard and surprisingly okay. I'm just going to compare it. I've got the Stanley one here that cost double the price of this one, and it took a load of work to get it right. And the mouth is, as you can see, the mouth is terribly fitted. The blade wasn't presenting it square through, it was an angle, the bed had been ground wrong, and it was just a horror. And that's double the price of this one. This was about £50, I think. But I had to grind the bed in, catch the light on it. I had to recut the bed by hand with the file to get it, because it had been ground at an angle. So I wouldn't recommend buying one of those. I mean, for £50, it was just a horror to put right. But the interesting thing would be to compare the blades to see if they'll change. This is a Stanley one. To see if you can use a Stanley blade in it. And the answer to that is yes, they're exactly the same. The top one's a Stanley one. There is no difference, they are the same. So if that blade turned out to not be great, you could put a Stanley one in. But from what I can see, from what I've just done with it and the way I've just treated it, it's not, I've had worse, in all fairness. So let's have a look what we've got here. So let's take this out of here. Move those to one side. Might be an idea if I put things back a bit closer. Get that straight. There we go. So let's have a look at what we've got. Let's take this out of here. The thread on there doesn't look too bad. It's got a clean thread on it. It's been cut okay. It's not all horrible. That's machine is not bad. The thread in there. Let's have a catch the light on it. It's not too bad. A bit of grease on it. I think it'd be fine. This seems to work quite nicely. So, yeah, the thread's fine on there. And that brass piece itself is well made, well finished. On to this bit. It's been machined out. It's not in bad condition. Might just be a little bit of a, where's my file gone? Might just be a little bit of a nick in that corner there. Just in those two front corners, there might be just a little bit of a discrepancy. You can just see it shining there. Just those two corner pieces. But with a file, a small needle file, you can easily just take that bit out and just bring it into line with the rest. But generally speaking, it's okay. These are the run-of-the-mill type pressed ones now that nearly all block planes have, that are kind of sensible money, like the Stanley. If you look at the Stanley, to be honest, this one's better made. It's better. It's a better shape and it's a better thickness. They're basically the same. Makes me smile that it's got patented written on it. In some ways, it might be superior, because looking at that, this one's just a square bar, but this has like, excuse me, this one has like bulges on it, so it probably, in my mind, probably works better. So, all good so far. Let's have a look at the bed. I haven't moved this yet, so. And that's operating relatively well. It doesn't look like the mouth will close up any more than that. So that's that kind of makes that part irrelevant, because what I do like about it is, I see, right, so it looks as though that's as small as the mouth will go, which is pointless, to be honest. There's no point in having an adjustable mouth if it only goes that far. So I'll address that. But for general use, it's a nitpicking. But if you wanted to use the adjustable mouth, it's not really, it's not functional in that respect, and I've got to be honest. But the machining of this isn't too bad. It looks like there might be a slight ridge along that front edge there. But I'd have to put a file on it and check it. Yeah, there's something going on there. you can see the line of paint there. I suspect what that is a line of lacquer that's got in, so that would probably benefit from being cleaned off. So I might have a look at that shortly. But generally, the surfaces are clean on it. Again, this piece is well made, it's well finished. The actual finish on the bed isn't bad, the actual milling. What you can see, the colour discrepancies, is the lacquer wearing off it. So, all in all, I don't think it's too bad. The adjustable mouth won't close enough, but I suppose at the end of the day it was 23 quid. But I think all in all, it's a functioning plane for that sort of money. You can't expect too much of it, and to be honest, it's far exceeded my expectations. And it's a far better thing than the Stanley one I bought. That was just a horror show, that one was. There was loads wrong with it. It was unusable. When it came out of the box, it was unusable. Nobody could have used it. Because when the lateral adjuster was fully locked over, the blade was still at an angle to the bed, so it was impossible to use it until I refiled the, sorry, but this has gone out of alignment now, but when I refiled the bed, excuse that, the blade sticking out at a weird angle, but I've just stuck it together briefly. But the blade come through at a weird angle, and there wasn't enough lateral adjustment to adjust it. There is a little bit of a discrepancy in the lateral adjustment on this one. It does have to be sort of locked over slightly one way, but it's usable, it's within tolerance. It's just favouring one side. What I think I'll do now is, I think it's probably worth me just doing a few touches to it, and just fine-tuning it slightly. I've done the bit where this is what you buy, this is what you get. Is it usable? Yes, it is usable, and for 23 quid it's remarkable, to be honest. I don't grumble paying £23 for that, and it would probably be surprising how much it would do. Even the blade seems respectable, which is usually dire straight away, so it's, you know, it's not perfect, but it's 23 quid, and it's astonishing that someone can make that for £23, and that it's actually a functioning plane, and I've used worse, it's cost double the price. So I think what I'll do is, I think I might just fine tune it a little bit and grease a few things. Have a look at this mouth situation, see if you can get that to close, just for curiosity, for those who want to take it a bit further. To me, the mouth opens wider, which it doesn't need to be wider. It's already wide, it's too wide where it is closed, and when it's fully closed it's there, so it's like the mouth is working in reverse, if you like. That movement that's coming there should be going the other way. But I shall go and have a, I think it's worth tuning it slightly and taking the video a little bit further. But for people who are just generally interested in buying a cheap plane, just a bit of DIY or whatever, this is as far as you need to go to get it working. All I've done to it is sharpen the blade, and she's planing like a champ. I would always advise taking the sharp corners off the bed, and just here, just wipe that corner off there. You can do it with a file iron, not much, just take the sharp corner off, because that can, burrs on there or sharp edge on there actually can lead to marking what you, it can lead to, like, you can perhaps see a bit of it there, like a bit of scoring, if you like, or scraping, and that's not the blade that's doing that. It's the sharp edges of the bed that are doing that. But I did this just on a try it as it is out the box, sharpen it and trying it as out the box, and that's the purpose of this video. Is this a functioning plane for 23 quid, and is it viable? And absolutely it is. Is that worth 23 quid? Yeah, all day long, no doubt about that. So I think I'll take this video a bit further now for those that it might be of interest to. I'll fine tune it slightly, I won't go mad, but I'll put a bit of grease on things. I'll see if I can sort that mouth out to be adjustable, and I'll come back. Right, we're back. I just wanted to update a little bit on the flattening. I thought you might like to see it before I've fully completed it. But you can see now the areas where I was right in thinking that there's a bit of a high spot here, and you can see it's a bit low. You can see the darker patches are where it's low, but to be honest, it's not bad. And it won't take many minutes to pull that back into line, but I just thought I'd show it you before I completed it, so you'd have some idea of how far out it was. And to be honest, not far out. I'll come back shortly. Right, we're back. I've done some simple fine tuning to it, and the results have been unbelievable, to be honest. It's planing like a champ, way beyond its price point and way beyond my expectations. You know, heavier shavings, it's performing, it's punching well above its weight. I've also done some cross grain stuff, and I've also done some end grain on this block, and it's planing great. I would say now it's probably performing as good as a mid-range block plane, really. For 23 quid, it completely amazes me, frankly. But I'll show you what I've done to it. There's nothing difficult. It's something anybody could do. It was working before. I could just see it was probably worth taking it another notch further, just to see what it's actually capable of. And I've flattened the bed just with 60 grit on a piece of glass. I've taken the adjuster off the mouth. That's just a dowel. That's something to point to. That's just like a knurled dowel that's been tapped into the casting. So I just prised that off with a screwdriver. Just got a screwdriver under it and prised it out. And I won't be using that anymore. There isn't enough adjustment on it. It's strictly speaking, it's a fail. It's in the wrong place, and it was never going to work. So, being as there's only point of having an adjustable mouth is so you can adjust it, I've taken that off and binned it. You don't need it. Veritas don't have that on them. They just have the brass straight on the casting. So as you can see, I've got the mouth can be closed up quite nicely now. I've got about probably 1.5 mil gap there, but it's working just fine. The mouth is. I have found that you need to pop it a little bit from inside, but it's actually working a treat. And that's sorted. That was the biggest flaw in the design of it, was that was just a non-goer. But now the mouth will close up, and what I do like about it, a lot of them, this part of the movable bed sticks in front of the plane, and if you hit something with it, it'll knock your blade into you, it'll knock that part of movable bed into your blade. Well, this one is already shorter, so if you bump something on that, it's not going to damage your blade. So I'll briefly run through what I've done to it. I'll strip it down and show you what I've done to it. So I've taken that, I've just prized that that adjuster out of its socket there, just prized it off. I shall bend that now, and that was the hole where it was. What I've done there is I've just flattened, obviously with a full-sized file, a mill file. I've just flattened this surface off here just to take the paint off it and just to give it a bearing surface. I'll just have to take the blade out because it's dangerous like that. I've cut myself a number of times with that. Taking the front mouth off and leaving the blade exposed is not a good idea. So I flattened that surface off. I've just wiped over here with a needle file just to take the burrs off, and the same with this. I've just wiped it over just to take the burrs off it. I have slightly adjusted the mouth to square it up to the blade, so when it was in, so when it came to the blade, it was bang on square. There wasn't much in it, maybe 0.5 millimetre, but I've just trued that face up slightly to match the blade when the blade's in the right position. I've also had a small needle file and just taken a bit out of this notch here, this housing where the bed sits. That's to get a bit more movement this way, so that I could close the mouth up to where it was, to my mind, usable. So I've just taken a little bit out of that front casting there just to get the mouth up, and I've done it enough so that now the bed won't smack into the blade. It can't completely close up and hit your sharp blade. So I did that when I put that movable piece into where I thought it would be working, so that when I flatten the bed, that'll all line up. But looking at it, even when it's moved around, even when it's slid, it's still level. Some of the cheaper ones aren't. So I've taken the corners off all this to make it less sharp, and I've just taken a small bit off this edge here so that it doesn't rough the grain up of the wood, because very often you think it's the blade, but it's actually these two corners here, the one in front and the one behind here, that are actually dragging on the timber and causing it to sort of leave scrape marks. This mechanism here I've smoothed off a bit, because as you can see, those are bits of metal sliding over each other, which is what gives you lateral adjustment. So when the blade's in and you're moving this around, all those surfaces are grinding together. So I've emery cloth, just only lightly, not to polish it, just to take the burrs off the blade. I've taken the burrs off all these edges just with a needle file or a piece of emery paper, just to take all the corners off, and around here. Don't do this section here where you get close to your blade, because you need that for sharpening. So don't dull that edge, but dull the rest of it. And that means that it moves around in there a lot smoother, because you've effectively worn all the edges with emery paper or a file, so that it moves around a lot smoother now. And the same applies to this. I have slightly cranked, I'll take this out. I've slightly cranked that part there, because it had a bit of an angle on it. And when it was in position, it was it was binding on the screw was dragging it. So you want it so when it's sitting together here in this section here, you want it to be loose on that screw so you can slide it up and down at that angle, because that'll make it work better, stop any binding. So what I've done with this is, again, I've taken a needle file and I've taken all these corners, all these edges off, taken all the burrs off and where they ride together on this piece here. You can see now, I've used it a few times, you can see where it's marked, where it slides around. So smooth all those edges off both sides so that there's nothing sharp in that part, because that enables it to run across the other surface smoothly. And the same applies to this. Just take a small needle file, just wipe it over the castings, all of them. You're not filing them off. You're just knocking off odd high spots and little bits of burr and things. So the same goes with that. Just smooth the edges off it gently. Smooth the back of this off here with a needle file. Just smooth it flat. Take all the burrs off it. There is still a small burr on that one. So take the burrs off there, just round the corners off so that everything runs smoothly one against the other. Because, excuse me a minute, I'll just do this. So that's a bit I'd missed, but basically just flat the back of that off, just enough to take the sharp corners off and the burrs off, because that's running in that casting, and again it wants to be smooth. And that's about it really. It's just paying attention to detail, to taking all the sharp points, all the sharp roughness off it. It would probably, if you kept using it, it would wear its own corners off. But this is a fast forward way to get everything adjusting and working smoothly. So let's put the bed back in. I'm particularly impressed with how well that bed fits in there, because I've had some cheap ones and that's just been diabolical, to be honest. If you find when you've taken this piece off that doesn't tighten, the thread's too long or the hole's too shallow, you could put a washer on here, but I've found it's just working just fine as it is. And I'd start with push the bed forward before you put the blade in, so you're not going to clash. So put that back together now. Put that screw into there. It's a very simple design. It's pretty simple. This piece here, again, I've just slightly flattened the end of it. I've taken a big file, a flat file, and I've filed all across that surface, so it just cleans that front edge up. And you can see it slightly caught the back there when I've been resting it on there. Personally, I'd put something straight on there, across that surface there, and I'd like to see it slightly hollow in the middle, so it's pinching the outsides or favouring the outsides. It'll hold the cutter better like that, rather than having it concave. It's better than convexed in that section there. So if you look at that, it's better if that's concave that way than convex that way. It'll hold the blade more securely. So I've greased all these threads and they work a lot better now. This other piece here was a bit of an issue, this pressed piece of tin here, which is what pressures the blade. So that was a bit gnarly and a bit burrs, and again, I've taken a file and I've just flattened the surface of it just a little bit so that the corners are off it. And then I've taken some emery paper and just smoothed it off so that the whole surface of that is smooth with no sharp edges, because that is part of where the blade slides back and to against that. So the blade is actually sliding across that surface. So any roughness will be transferred into adjustment, notchiness and just general feeling a bit crunchy. So putting it back together, line that up as far as it'll go out of the way so it's not catching at all. Put that into there and adjust that screw, that one there, down just so it'll go together. See, that's catching now, so just take it back from there just so that it slides together. That wants to be as low as possible because that means you need less distance on that one, less adjustment on that one to get it to pinch the blade. Don't tighten this right up. It only needs to be just thumb tight, just gently. You can bring the blade forward to roughly so it's starting to come through the bed. I personally, as I've always pointed, this business of feeling that it's just nonsense to me. If you did it with mine, you'd cut yourself. So what I tend to do is adjust them by sight. So as the blade starts to present, I'll chew it up and then I'll take it back so it's just below the bed. And then I'll bring it forward to take the slack out of the adjuster. And then just move the mouth to where you want it. You can adjust that to as tight as you want it. That's fine by my measure. And then you can bring your blade forward just so it's starting to peep. Make any lateral adjustments you need. And then just take a cut like that. Mine is slightly favouring, as you can see, the lateral adjuster is slightly favouring one way. That's probably just variations in the castings the manufacturer and just the general thing, but it's not a problem. There's enough movement there to do it. And if you wanted that dead centre, you could just grind your blade at a very slight angle. You'd probably find it's only 0.5 millimetre or something. The other thing I've noticed is sometimes it's beneficial if you're pushing that across just to keep that blade that way, which also helps. It favours one side more than the other. So if I can demonstrate that, if you push it right across, it's there, and if you push it that way, it doesn't protrude enough as much, but it's enough. It's over where it needs to be. But when you put it to this side, you'll see that's protruding a lot more that side. So the adjuster's favouring one side more than the other. So if you push on the blade on that section, it also helps that situation. And you can get it over square, which is all you need really to for it to be functioning. So the only thing I'll mention about the finish on it, there's this weird sort of like a varnish they've put on it. I don't know what sort of child snot they wiped on it, but it comes off readily. You can see it coming off there. I don't know whether that is meant to be a protective film or whether it was meant to stay on there or what, I don't know, or whether it's the grease that's dried on the surface, but it was on the bed. You've seen the pictures of it before. That's been cleaned off with sandpaper. I personally would also do the sides now, but I've left that on so you can see how it can look patchy when there's actually nothing wrong with it. It's just this cheap lacquer that's on there that's coming off. It might not be lacquer, it might be dried on grease. So I think that about sums it up really. Yeah, so where all these surfaces are, where the cutter, this clamp sits on the cutter sits on the adjuster for the lateral, and that's it in turn sits on the plate for the depth. All those moving against each other is what gives it, whether it's smooth or crunchy or whatever, and that's why it's worth smoothing all those surfaces out, because it smooths the whole operation of it out. So it's not really a difficult job, and it is worth doing if you've got the time. If you're just a DIYer and you just want to use it, you can see you can use it before doing what I've just done to it in this last process. Right, a conclusion. Well, it's amazed. Well, I'll start by saying I know that some people will say when they see this video that there's no quality control, so I've been lucky and I've just happened to have a good plane, and you could buy another one and it might be completely way out, and there is some merit in that, but it's not entirely accurate, because I didn't buy this plane by accident. I studied, I did a lot of research on it. I look at reviews on Amazon. Some of the reviews have photographs on them, so you can see issues that other people have had, and out of the cheaper ones, this is the one that I considered to stand the best chance of being a usable plane, just by looking at reviews, looking at pictures, and working out that this might be reasonable quality. So it doesn't come down to look, it comes down to research and observation. If you get one of these and it is way out, if you can't adjust the blade to be level with the bed and that, just return it. Amazon, not an issue. You can just return things for free. So if you buy one and you get a really bad one, just send it back and try another. But as far as I'm concerned, for 23 quid, it's an absolute bargain, and I'm really truly amazed. I had no expectations of it. I suppose I was expecting it to be rubbish, but it baffles me that you can make something like that for £23. But for a cheap block plane, it's a good one. If you get one and it's not too good, return it and get another one. But I've got a feeling, gut instinct tells me that these aren't going to be too bad. From what I can see of the reviews and from what I've seen of other people's pictures and things on Amazon, they seem to be relatively good for the money. So would I recommend it? Well, I'm completely knocked out by the quality of it and the way it works for 23 quid, I'll be honest with you. Obviously, if you're a professional woodworker or you're into your fine furniture and all that sort of thing, then you're going to spend more money than that. But if you're a DIYer, or you're someone who's just tinkering with furniture, maybe you're doing a bit of model making or something like that, then to me it's a no-brainer. For that sort of money and what you're getting, it's a bargain as far as I'm concerned. I did see some that have complained that the blade's shredded on them. Now, I think that blade's good, personally. I can usually tell a good or a bad blade just by sharpening it, and I think it's a good blade. You can put the Stanley blade in if you want to at a later date, it will fit. I suspect the blades are shredding. Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that. The dog started barking. Yeah, so going to the blades again. I have seen some photographs on Amazon where the blades are shredded, but I suspect that they've not been sharpened, and the grinding on the back of a new blade, as I said, those grind marks will come through as chips in the front of the blade, as basically like a saw blade and shredding. So if you're just using the blade straight out of the box with the grind marks on the back, it's going to shred the blade. There's no way around that, because it's not sharp when you start off. Any grinding marks on the back will come through, look like the blade's been shredded, when there's actually nothing wrong with the blade. It's just it needed to be sharpened to begin with. The other thing is, it also depends on what you're playing with it, because I found if you're playing something like chipboard or plywood, no plain blade, not even an old plain blade, will stand that sort of punishment. The new A2 ones will. They'll stand a bit more. But basically, chipboard now is made out of recycled material. I use it at work. It's not what it used to be. It's got metal and stone and all sorts of stuff in it, so you can't expect a blade to take that sort of punishment. As I said, the A2 ones on more expensive planes are more durable, and if you're playing in a lot of plywood, edges of plywood, then that makes a lot of sense. So I think that just about covers everything. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a good one. 23 quid, it's unbelievable. So thanks for watching and take care.